You ever meet somebody so loyal, so genuine, so pure-hearted, that just being around them makes you want to be better? Now, I ain't talking about no celebrity friendship or business partner. I'm talking about the kind of loyalty that stays when the world turns its back on you. Man, when I started learning about Islam, I came across this name, Abu Bakr, R-A-A. And the more I read, the more I sat there like, how come I ain't never heard of this man before? Because what I found out, this brother right here, he wasn't just the Prophet Muhammad's companion. He was his protector, his backbone, his right-hand man in every storm. Now, you got to understand something. Where I come from, loyalty is rare. Everybody loves you when the light's on, but cut them lights off. See who's still sitting with you. And when I heard about Abu Bakr, I realized this man, he stayed when even danger showed up at the door. They say when the Prophet Muhammad first received revelation, a lot of folks doubted him. They say, you expect us to believe angels talk to you? But Abu Bakr, he didn't flinch. He said, if Muhammad said it, it's true. And man, that hit me. Because most of us, we only ride with folks when it's convenient. But this man, he believed before anybody else did. That's faith on another level. See, in Islam, they call him a Siddiq, the truthful one. And I thought, now hold up. This brother was so truthful that even truth itself called him truthful. Whew, that's deep. Now let me paint the picture. Me sitting there with my coffee, reading this story, and I get to the part about the cave. The Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr are on the run, hiding from people who want to kill them just for spreading faith. And I'm thinking, man, this ain't no movie. This is real life. They hide inside this cave called Thawr. The army's outside searching every crack in the mountain. And Abu Bakr turns to the Prophet and says, if they just look down, they'll see us. You know what the Prophet says? He says, do not be sad. Allah is with us. Now imagine that. You're sitting in a cave, people with swords outside trying to find you. And the man next to you, calm as a mountain, says, don't worry, God's with us. Man, I tell you what, that kind of faith make you feel small in the best way. And Abu Bakr, he didn't argue, he didn't panic, he just stayed still, heart racing, but spirit trusting. That's loyalty, that's courage. When I read that, I put my book down and said, Lord, give me friends like that or make me one. Because that right there, that's the kind of love that comes from the soul. It ain't built on what you can get, it's built on what you're willing to give. You know, the more I learned about this man, Abu Bakr, the more I realized this wasn't no side character in history. This was a man who gave everything, and I mean everything, for what he believed in. See, we live in a world where everybody got a price, money, fame, comfort. They all got a number next to it. But Abu Bakr, he lived like his faith wasn't for sale. When I read that he was one of the richest men in Makkah, I thought, okay, this brother had status. But when Islam came, he started spending it all. Not to build a palace, not to buy no land, but to free slaves. People who were being beaten just for saying there is no God but Allah. He bought their freedom one by one, and every time somebody asked him, why are you doing this? He said, for the sake of Allah. That's it. No applause, no camera, just faith. And it made me think, if I had all that money, would I have that courage to just give it all up? Not for show, but for truth. Man, that's next level conviction. Now let me tell you about the bond between him and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There's this story right before the migration from Makkah to Medina. The Prophet comes to Abu Bakr's house in the middle of the day, a time he never visits. Abu Bakr knew right away something serious is happening. The Prophet tells him, God has permitted me to migrate. And you know what Abu Bakr says? He don't ask, how long will it take? He don't say, is it safe? He just says, may I be your companion, O messenger of God. And when the Prophet said yes, this grown man, this leader, this nobleman, he cried out of joy, out of love. And I sat there thinking, that's what real brotherhood looks like. See, sometimes I talk about how success can get lonely. You climb up and folks change on you. But this story, it showed me that true success ain't climbing higher than people. It's walking beside somebody in truth. When they finally reached Medina after that long journey, people were waiting, cheering, trying to figure out who the Prophet was. And you know what Abu Bakr did? He shaded the Prophet with his cloak. So when the sun hit, it hit him instead. Man who loves like that anymore, we can barely share a sandwich, let alone shade somebody with our life. And yet that's what he did again and again. When battles came, he was there. When the Prophet was insulted, he stepped up. When people were afraid, he gave them calm. And every time he gave, he smiled. Because for him, protecting the Prophet wasn't a burden, it was honor. Then there's this one story, and this one right here got me. During one of the early struggles, when the Muslims were being attacked, the Prophet was praying near the Kaaba. A group of men came and started beating him, throwing him down, hitting him, dragging him by his clothes. Everybody else stood back, too scared to move. But Abu Bakr, he ran right into the crowd. He shouted, will you kill a man just because he says, my Lord is Allah? They turned on him and beat him till he passed out cold. And when he woke up, you know the first thing he said? He didn't say, who hit me? He didn't say, I need a doctor. He said, how is the prophet? Man, I had to stop reading right there because I thought that's not friendship, that's devotion. That's love in its purest form. And you know what the craziest part is? He never bragged about any of it. Not once. He was a man of status, but he lived like a servant. When people praised him, he'd say, oh, Allah, make me better than they think of me and forgive me for what they don't know. That line right there, who? That line shook me, man, because I got folks praising me on TV and interviews, and sometimes I start believing it. But this man, he had the world's respect and still bowed his head in humility. When I looked at Abu Bakr's life, I realized this ain't just history, it's a mirror. It's showing us what faith looks like when it's lived, not just preached. See, loyalty, love, humility, they ain't outdated, they just rare. And maybe that's why his name still stands tall after 1,400 years, because God don't forget hearts like that. You know, I sat there one night, long after reading all these stories, and I just couldn't shake this one thought. How did this man love like that? How did Abu Bakr give so much, stay so humble, and still walk around this earth like he owed the world nothing? It hit me, man. This world don't raise men like that anymore. We raise talkers, we raise flexers. Everybody wants to be seen doing good. But Abu Bakr, he wanted to be seen only by God. See, we talk a lot about loyalty, but we don't mean his kind of loyalty. We mean the kind that lasts till we get offended, the kind that ends when it ain't convenient no more. But Abu Bakr's loyalty, it was built on truth, not comfort, not benefit, just truth. When the Prophet ﷺ passed away, that moment broke people. Even Umar, the strong warrior, couldn't believe it. He stood there, sword in hand, shouting, anyone who says Muhammad is dead, I'll cut him down. He couldn't process it. And then Abu Bakr walked in. He looked at the blessed body of the Prophet ﷺ, kissed his forehead and said, you were beautiful in life and beautiful in death. Then he turned to the people, calm, steady, like a man carved from patience. He said, whoever worships Muhammad, know that Muhammad has passed. But whoever worships Allah, know that Allah is ever living and never dies. Man, when I read that, I just sat back in my chair and said, that's leadership. That's faith in its rawest form. He didn't lose himself to grief. Even though his heart was breaking, he remembered the truth, that faith don't die with a man, not even the greatest of men. I tell folks all the time, it's easy to have faith when life feels good, but the real test comes when everything you love is taken from you. When God says, let's see who you really are when I remove the spotlight, that's when your heart gets measured. And Abu Bakr, he passed that test with honor. When he became the first Caliph, you'd think he'd enjoy power. You'd think he'd say, now it's my time. But no, he was terrified. He said, I have been given authority over you, but I am not the best of you. Can you imagine that? A man chosen to lead the entire Muslim world, and his first words are humility. That ain't weakness, that's strength. That's what happens when your ego is bowed before God. We live in a world where people crave control. We want to own everything, run everything, have the last word. But Abu Bakr knew real power ain't in the throne. It's in serving the one who owns the throne. He would walk through the streets at night, helping widows, feeding the poor, and never telling nobody. There's a story where Umar, R.A., followed him one night, curious where Abu Bakr disappeared to, and he found him inside a poor woman's house, milking her goat, sweeping her floor, making bread for her kids. And Umar said, by Allah, you have tired out all the leaders after you. You can't fake that. That ain't politics. That's love for God expressed through love for people. And it made me think, man, when was the last time we did something purely for God? No cameras, no posts, no applause, just out of love. Because we forget faith isn't what you say, it's what you do when nobody's watching. Now, I'll be real with y'all. When I started reading about this man, I had to face myself. I had to ask, Steve, who are you loyal to? Is it your image, your money, your comfort, or the truth? And that was a hard question, because we all like to think we're good people, but goodness without sacrifice, that's just comfort wearing a halo. Abu Bakr didn't chase comfort, he chased the truth, and that truth cost him everything. But in the end, he gained peace. You know what's wild? Even when he was dying, he didn't want to burden the community. He told them, return every piece of property I used for the state back to the treasury. And when they counted it, all he left behind was a piece of cloth and an old camel. That's it. That's how the most powerful man in the Muslim world left this life empty-handed but full-hearted. It made me think of a verse I came across in the Quran. The day when neither wealth nor children will benefit anyone except the one who comes to Allah with a pure heart. And that verse hit me like a hammer. Because, man, I've been blessed. Cars, shows, success, fame, and yet all of that means nothing if the heart ain't pure. That's the legacy Abu Bakr left behind. Not gold, not fame, but purity. A clean heart, loyal to his Lord and to his prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And here's the thing, that kind of faith, it ain't outdated. You can still live like that today. You can still protect what's right, speak truth, even when it's unpopular. Love people selflessly. You don't need to be a Caliph, you just need courage. Abu Bakr's story taught me that faith ain't about grand gestures. It's about small acts done sincerely. Every prayer, every kindness, every moment you choose patience over pride. That's how you build a legacy that lasts. Now, when I look at this man, I don't just see a historical figure. I see the blueprint of what real manhood looks like. Not domination, devotion. Not fame, faith. Not talking big, living right. And that's the part that got me emotional, y'all. Because if the world had more men like Abu Bakr, humble, faithful, fearless, it'd be a whole lot more peaceful. He didn't just protect the prophet. He protected truth itself, and that's why he's remembered. Not as a king, but as a friend, the protector of Islam, the man who stood beside the messenger of God when the world turned its back. And maybe that's the lesson for all of us, to stand beside truth even when we stand alone, to give when it hurts, to love without pride, and to walk this earth not begging to be remembered, but hoping to be forgiven. That's the spirit of Abu Bakr, and that's the kind of man I want to be.